Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I really should not be doing a video now. I've already taken my Zapaclone for the evening, so I'm kind of strung out on that. But hopefully that'll make this video more entertaining, because I just saw this and I was like, I gotta at least attempt to do a stream about it. As with all streams, if it's complete shit, we'll just hide up that this thing ever happened. So I was just about to go to bed, and just all this shit popped up on screen, and it just said the liberalist, liberalism, etc. And I was just like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, I had no idea, like, what was even going on. To be perfectly honest, so we had all this nonsense going on, and I was like, this would be a good topic for a stream. Let's just try to figure out what this whole liberalist uh, thing is about. I'm trying to figure out why my chat's not working. Is it because they just updated it? Just give me a second. Let me try to get chat working again. Anyways, so this is apparently the initial video, and yeah, so this is pretty cringy out of the get-go. So let's see here.
I received a message from a long-time subscriber regarding my debate with Richard Spencer.
With Richard Spencer.
On how I've been looking at the event. He pointed out that while it is important not to live only in the estimation of others, that wasn't an excuse for being selfish. And to his mind, that's precisely what I had been during the debate. He noted that I had responsibilities beyond myself and that I had not been taking these seriously. And I think that's a very fair point. I had not been considering the people who may feel like they rely on me, and that I am not just a content creator, but a representative of something larger than myself, and should have been mindful of that at the time. And by all accounts, this is probably true. I am certainly being treated as the figurehead of something, even if nobody can define it, and our enemies would describe it as skeptic community. I've never liked this label. Firstly, because it represents only a reaction to something else, and secondly, because it means we are allowing our
I'll start again. Sorry, just give me a second. I'm just going to try to figure out why the chat isn't working. Embed chat and stream. Okay. Oh, there we go. Is it working now? I'm just trying to see if I can get the chat. There we go. The chat's working now. Okay. Just give me a second. I'm just trying to make sure that this looks okay. Well, it's not on at the moment, so that's why there's no sound. Okay, so let's just start this from the beginning. I just wanted to get chat working before I did anything else. Let me just see if I can make the chat a little bigger. Okay, there we go. Hopefully the chat is nice and visible now. And that being said, I received
a message from a long-time subscriber.
Okay, so I don't really know what any of this is. Basically, from what I can determine, after the whole debate disaster, which I did a video on, which wasn't really good. I shouldn't do these when I'm like super tired like I am now, because bad things tend to happen. I tend to just kind of ramble on. But yeah, so that debate happened, and Sargon like looked like a complete ass in the debate, and he goes, "Okay, guys, I gotta somehow come back from this nonsense. So I'm gonna come back from this nonsense by coming up with some more nonsense. So I'm gonna invent my own ideological term, liberalist." So I haven't read any of this. I have no idea what the hell this thing even is. So let's just see him try to explain what a liberalist is.
Regarding my debate with Richard Spencer, that really changed my mind on how I'd been looking at the event. He pointed out that while it is important not...
By the way, that's like the most fucking cringy shit ever. Like, to be honest, Richard Spencer is as cringy, if not more cringy, than Sargon. This is like, oh, I don't even want to look at this.
Of others, That wasn't an excuse for being selfish, and to his mind, that's precisely what I had been during the debate. He noted that I had responsibilities beyond myself and that I had not been taking these seriously, and I think that's a very fair point. I had not been considered...
Like, what is he even referring to here? I'm just going to try to think about this just because I find it... Does he mean that he has the, like, his responsibilities to be the leader of an ideological movement and he's just been focusing on making his, like, 400K a year? I don't really know what he's talking about. Maybe if someone in the chat could say what are these responsibilities he was supposed to be taking seriously but isn't? I don't know.
The people who may feel like they rely on me, and that I am not just a content creator, but a representative of something larger than myself, and should have been mindful of that at the time. And by all accounts, this is probably true. I am certainly being treated as the figurehead of something, even if nobody can define it and our enemies would describe it as
skeptic community.
I've never liked this label, firstly because it represents only a reaction.
So I guess what he's saying here is he's the leader of a movement. Nobody knew who I was before I put on this statue of a cod. So okay.
To something else, and secondly because it means we are allowing our enemies to define us. However, having a large group of independent-minded individualists agree on a label that will encompass a specific set of core beliefs is difficult. Frankly, I don't know what to choose. I'm not worried about how the enemies of liberalism will view it, or what they'll try to do with it, but I am concerned that we have been resting on our laurels for far too long, and we need to start organising. The iron law of activism is that while you do nothing, nothing will change. The highly organised, well-funded, and deeply entrenched power structure of the extreme left will continue to subsume the institutions of our countries within its ideological sphere of influence. I am so sick and tired of people saying, well, ragging on bedroom feminists is so passé. Well, yes, which is why people don't do it. But I don't know...
No, but you do. You talk... Let me just go and look at his channel. What has he talked about? Okay, feminism. Okay, like, dude, feminism. Okay, so this guy's complains like, oh, there's this thing that they beat us with, and they say all you guys do is make easy videos attacking feminism. Nobody does that. Nobody does that anymore. And the first, like, top row, feminism. That looks like feminism. Feminism. That looks like feminism. That looks like feminism. Okay, so like half, like a quarter of his videos are about feminism. Okay.
I don't know whether anyone is paying attention, but the far left is making power grab after power grab, consuming more and more of our free societies and subjugating them to their dogmatic racial and gendered planning. While SJWs rack up victory after victory, we cannot even decide on a label. My concerned subscriber is right. I had not...
You and who, Sargon? Who the fuck do you speak for? Like, who gives a shit about you? Like, I think it's, like, it's... Here's the thing, he's like, oh, I'm a leader of this big move... What is Sargon's big movement? The alt-right posits to represent the plurality, if not majority, of white people who aren't happy with the current situation. In particular, they directly represent the white working class, who have a tendency to vote conservative at the moment, but are also willing to vote for things like the Front National and kind of far-right movements. So there is a lot of room to expand into... It does represent, I guess you could say the alt-right represents the disenfranchised white population, which is most of it, but in particular males, and within males, working class males, and I guess middle class males who have had a hard time kind of breaking into the economy. So there is this broad group of people who I think the alt-right expects to kind of awaken and follow them, and their policies are geared in that direction. That's why you have all kind of this populist language and stuff, and kind of appeals to the working class and kind of appeals to the common man. But yeah,
been taking this seriously, but there are serious consequences for everyone, and we must start pushing back as a united front with a way to identify one another and assert a powerful set of values, which I believe should be centered upon the individual, their rights, and respect for their personal agency. In my estimation, this is the spirit of liberalism. And
Sargon, liberalism's dead. Liberalism is like libertarianism. It can only survive a society in which upper middle class white heterosexual males dominated. It's like libertarianism. I mean the irony of libertarianism is you get all these people talking about like how it could solve society's problems, and then you realize that all the libertarians are heterosexual upper middle class white males. I mean, that's just like who this is for. And the fact that he can't understand that, yeah,
is what is needed for the individual and the wider society in which they exist to thrive. We must positively assert this, and not just on the internet. As we learned in 2017, doing almost anything in real life is far more effective.
Look at that smug piece of shit right there. Look at that smug piece of shit. Okay, but Sargon, we oh, the volume is kind of low on the mic. Okay. Okay, just as always, guys, let me know. Sorry, when you say volume's low, I assumed you thought that the desktop audio was low. Just, I can't hear the audio because I'm streaming and it would go in a feedback loop, so just let me know. So what was I saying? Okay, so I think Sargon, and this is something a lot of people I think don't understand, because people tend to say we live in an age of groups. Everybody's a member of this group. This is a member of that group, etc., etc. So there's that, and there's this idea that the individual's being lost within the whole of all these floods of group identity. The truth is, I think there's never been an era where we've been less of a group as a society. Now, I live in Toronto, and you walk down Toronto, and you can see dozens like, if you go on to Subway in Toronto, you can have about, like, 2 dozen different languages, and none of the people can understand each other. So you have just, like, Muslims wearing their traditional Islamic garb sitting at one part of the train. You have some Hindus who are, like, listening to rap music and, like, dancing in another part of the train. You have the white guy with his Asian GF sitting in another part. And then you have some, like, recent East Asian immigrants who's glaring at everybody else thinking that they're degenerates and wondering why he came here. So are these people like really group identities? I mean, because I guess you could say they're defining themselves by their identities, but in a multicultural society, all identity is kind of individual. So what winds up happening, and this is one of the reasons I'm so hard on kind of the way I am, is within Toronto you have this balkanization where there's certain areas for each ethnic group, etc. And even when they do mix, they kind of create a group of people who have no prior identity. And I don't know, I just find that doesn't really work out very well. But no, it's because I live in this kind of the society Sargon wants to build. It's probably the most, I'm trying to think, the most diverse place on earth is probably Toronto. And there's very little just social trust. There's just a lot of, it's just completely an atomized place. So, yeah. I don't know. Hopefully people kind of understand what I'm trying to say.
Than doing it on the internet, even if it's something as simple as sitting in an audience. If we want to see a future in which people are not oppressed because of their race, gender, sexuality, or lack thereof, then we cannot wait passively as the forces of social justice advance and enround us. To this end, I will do a tactical analysis of the current state of the war against intersectionality and its oppressive goal of remaking the West along collectivist lines so we can see the full scope of the problem, and I shall create a modest organisation around which we can focus our efforts. I will be performing more live events and attending...
A modest organisation. Oh boy, Sargon's gonna create Sargon's army. Maybe like Sargon Seraphs, or Sargon soldiers, or I don't know, something of a cod.
various conferences and...
You can't have apostles. Apostles is the name for my personal army. Argent's apostles. They're my personal elite fighting squad.
Conventions around the world, and I will notify you in advance, so if you wish to join me, the opportunity will be available to you. And to those who felt I did not do my duty, you are correct, and I apologise. I did not take the situation seriously, and I allowed a foolish blunder to take place. But this will not happen again. You have my word. To identify ourselves, I recommend we choose a label and stick with it. If someone who promotes feminism is a feminist, and someone who promotes socialism is a socialist, and someone who promotes Islamism is an Islamist, and someone who promotes fascism is a fascist, then someone who promotes liberalism must be a liberalist. I say that we use this label until it's dead or we find something better.
Would you like to know more?
Okay, let's see here. Wow, Sargon is a real hero. So he's starting this organization, and there's no link to the organization here. Somebody said that they have a website, but I don't know. Okay, so let's see here. So I don't know. So what would be kind of the preeminent one to explain liberalist? Would Mr. Medicare versus Sargon be it? Would this liberalist principles be it? Or would it be let's see here, the 2 hours of intellectual masturbation? Let's see here. So I don't know which, I guess, because people have complained. Let's see here. That I don't sit through the entire thing. So obviously it's 12 o'clock. I'm not going to fucking watch this whole thing, but we'll see how far I get.
So I thought I would do a stream on this today because yesterday I forgot.
Fuck this shit. I'm not watching this. No, actually, I took my Zapaclone earlier, so I'm kind of mellow and slightly crazy at the moment. So let's see how this goes.
But right. So what I've done, just to clear up any misconceptions,
I've done is I've gotten together a collection of the wisest intellectuals that I could find. We have me, Sargon of Akkad, and I am a Babylonian god king. It's just like there is the god king of Babel. I am the god king of the of liberalism. You see, one day, once I have ascended into my statuesque form, I will then become the statue of Akkad, and I will go and make sweet love to Lady Liberty, and our children shall be the liberalistas. Okay, so that's number one. Second, we've got V Romania. I think it's Romania. So he looks like he should be a fascist, but he probably isn't. Then we have a star. So we got some like guy who likes Super Mario. Okay, that's pretty based. So yeah, so it's got him. So let's probably. I'm trying to think. Well, who was his name? That was like Movie Bob. It's like esoteric Marioism. Then we got some furry faggot. I don't even know who that is. I think that's Charlie from All Dogs Go to Heaven. I don't even know like who that guy is. And like all good ones, he doesn't have the he doesn't even have a list of the people who were on it. So like these guys came on and like Sargon, and they've already made him probably like $1,000. Let's see here. So yeah, so it's $1,000. He can't even fucking put their channels in the description because that would be taking away from his ego. Okay, so we got that. We got the furry fag. We got this dude who kind of looks like a character from Rose and Madden, but shitty. And then we got a chicken with an alligator head and a Burger King crab. So this is the crack team, guys. This is the crack team of liberalism. They searched across the world to find 6 men, sort of men, who could come and defend liberalism. They came when no one else would. In a dying world, these are our heroes. They are known as the liberalists.
That people may have, I've decided I like the term liberalist.
Nobody likes it.
An activist who is a proponent of classical liberalism.
Classical liberalism.
To social liberalism and possibly even some forms of libertarianism.
Some forms of liberalism and some forms of social libertarianism. Okay, I'm going to do my CBC Radio 1 voice for Sargon. See, for those of you who don't know, they have this thing in Canada called CBC Radio 1. And it's where, like, the most insufferable, pretentious cunts go on to ramble on for hours about nothing. And there's a voice that I call the CBC Radio 1 accent. You see, there was this I was thinking the other day, I was sipping this wine, and this wine was made from this rare grape that's only grown in this particular hill in France. And the hills of that, the reason the wine tastes that way was that the wine, there's a lot of copper in the water. There's copper in the water under the hill where the wine grows. And, you know, copper was used since ancient times to make coinage. So when you look at a penny, you're looking at a piece of copper that may have been used to make the wine that you're drinking next to the penny. It's something to really think about.
But to describe someone who is an advocate of a basic set of principles, because frankly we didn't have a word for it, and it kind of disturbs me how politically inert liberalism, as we're as we want it, has become. And I think it is due to the lack of an activist term. I think it's definitely a part.
No, it's because you don't represent anybody and no one gives a shit about you.
It's the naming convention.
Nobody.
No one else was using it. So what I've done is I have registered the website liberalists.org.
Oh my god. How funny would it have been if some troll would have registered the name for the website immediately after he did the video?
Nothing there, apart from a frequently asked questions section, under which I have just given the standard dictionary definitions of the word individualist, so the alt-right don't need to ask any more questions. That's all I've done though. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a statement of principles.
As I said, I'm kind of high off of Zopiclone, so if I'm just going to say a bunch of just crazy shit that doesn't make any sense, that's because the Zopiclone lowered my natural inhibitions, and it's making me speak in the CBC Radio 1 voice. But we're just going to enjoy some Sargon of a card.
So, I am with King Crocodile, Lou Levi, Wags, Scrump, V, and if anyone else is interested, you can contact me on Skype, and we will talk.
We will talk.
All right, so.
Yes, but you have to pay me $200 and you get a 15-minute Skype call with me. And I'm not Lawrence Sutherland, so you better keep that hand above the desk while we talk. Because I can tell. I have years of practice telling when people are having fun with themselves when they talk to me on Skype.
First things first, is there anything that we think shouldn't be on there?
Well, do you have is there a good, I guess the stuff that you just sent us in Skype earlier is kind of our groundwork to kind of build off of and look at, right?
The stuff that you're not going to show us.
Scroll up and get it here. It is was it the Google Doc?
It was the docs.
So yeah, I mean, I've just written down.
Fuck you guys. Fuck you guys. This is like a big podcast. We're probably gonna make $1,000. We can't be bothered to get the fucking Google Doc open beforehand, because we're the Liberalists. We are an organization. We're so organized we can't have the fucking doc open.
I personally view liberalism as being based around the personal ownership of the individual, with the primary role of government to protect the rights of the individual, so the individual may be free. The whole point is the personal freedom of the individual. This includes
what does that mean?
Freedom of association, artistic freedom, economic freedom.
Autistic freedom?
I think that the way the government should be run should be under equality of opportunity, opposition to discrimination based on sex, gender, race, etc. I want the government to be secular. I want it to be democratic. I want universal suffrage. I want
Why?
Law.
How does that follow?
Ultimately, I want individual.
I don't like. Okay, could someone explain this to me? Because I never understood this. So, what we're going to do is because we want to have everybody. We want to protect these rights, and the only guy who does the only way that we can ensure our rights is if everybody can vote, because there's no circumstances under which rights can be protected then everybody votes, because that's just part of liberalism. It's just part of it.
What about religion freedom?
Well, that's what secularism is. Freedom to practice your religion how you want, but I mean, I'm happy to write down the fine.
I think some clarification. I think some clarification is needed on what exactly an individual is.
An individualist? Haven't you been on Twitter?
No,
Haven't
not
you been listening to streams? An individualist is an antisocial hermit who can't communicate with other people in any way.
Actually, if you want to, in fact, here's a link. This is why I've made this website. I'll put it in the live stream thing as well. It's the only question that I've answered on a frequently asked questions. Where I've just listed the dictionary definition of what the word individualist means, because individualist does not mean individual.
Guys, I know we came here to discuss liberalist, but
an advocate for a social theory favoring freedom of action for individuals and collective or state control.
Okay, cool.
How can you have a group that supports that, Rags?
Well, because that's really fucking gay.
Oh, I heard that. I heard it was really fucking gay.
That's really fucking gay, and it is also cringe.
Yeah. But the thing is, I'm a white male, so if I don't start acting really gay, then I'm in trouble.
And I think that reminds me of something. I just want to take a break from this high quality political philosophical discourse, because this is how you start a truly intellectual movement with a whole bunch of gay jokes. Yes.
You gotta get higher on the totem pole.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start diversifying my labels.
Yes.
I'm probably gonna become trans, but one of those trans people.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have some bangers and mash. Well, I saw off my dick so I can become a tranny.
Of the kind of community that we inhabit, a sort of broad, whatever people want to call it, skeptosphere, shitlord land.
Yeah, absolutely. A liberalist is just someone who supports and promotes these freedoms, these principles. It's not someone who's personally kind to me or anything like that. You know, I mean, I'm going to set up something I will call the Liberalist Society or something like that, or Britain maybe, or something like that. It's an ideological position, not a club. So if people want to start their own societies, whatever, you go ahead. You know, there's absolutely nothing stopping you. This isn't a trademark. I don't own it. You know,
I don't own it, but I do own the website. So fuck you. if you want to have something posted on shittyliberalist.ca.com.uk, you're going to have to go through me. And I have the individual freedom to make you pay through the nose.
Just the one saying that.
Yeah.
So
The opposite.
just to be 100% clear.
It's the philosophy of the ant people. It's basically like if you're an individualist, you're a person who likes to think for himself, who likes to take his own decisions, while the collectivist is telling that the individual is a drone. You have your place in society, you're not allowed to question it. You have to be like a feminist male ally.
Yeah, but that's not what he was asking.
Oh, I was just trying to clarify what the difference is.
Sorry, Crocodile, do you want to ask that again, mate? Let's say that again.
Yes, this has been a very
I
successful stream so
give me a
far.
second to retrieve it. You guys go on.
Yeah, well, I think that what you were getting at is this is just an ideological position. This isn't like something I own. So just to make people clear, I'm going to found something, and if people want to support
I was not the inventor. You know what they say? Some are born liberalist, some achieve liberalistism, and some have liberalism thrust upon them. And I do not intend to form a political philosophy. It just came about. And that political philosophy was liberalism.
so that's cool. If not, then can.
But Sargon, that
The way
would,
I was thinking,
that would make you
the way
a
I-
leader.
The way I was thinking about it is, you know, you have this community, and I'm gonna just broadly call us shitlords, because why not?
You're not, though.
You have this community of shitlords, and then a liberalist is a subset of shitlords who participate in
No,
actions.
it isn't at all.
Presumably, yeah. I don't see a problem.
Shitlords are alt-right.
There will be people outside the shitlords community who will also be liberals.
I don't know.
The question I would ask is, sorry.
just want to say, the Archangel says everyone in this stream needs to be gassed.
It's just I think a lot of concern that a lot of people have is they didn't really sign up to this term liberalist. It's kind of, I guess they would feel that it's being imposed from the top down, which would.
What the fuck is this guy going on about? Yes, now, as we're announcing our make-believe ideology, our fear is that some people might take offense. They might go, Sargon, I signed up for liberalism, but not for the liberalist. So I feel offended. I feel that you're trying to define me as something that I am not.
To the principles.
Yes, the principles.
I'm just the person who coined it. I didn't even coin it, actually. It already existed.
It already existed.
That discussed the concept in 2011, and I'm just going to use it myself. If people don't want to use it, that's fine. If you're happy to come up with something better, that's fine. But nobody has come up with anything better. This is not a spur of the moment thing. We've been planning, I've been talking to people for ages. Like, look, we just need a label for the people who wants to be like pro-classical liberal principles. And the thing is, another thing.
This is honestly Sargon's suicide note. He was like, well, that debate was a fucking disaster. It was just a cringy mess. So I've got to figure out some way to try to redeem myself, like to try to make my fans be like, no, Sargon's still a genius. Okay, sure, that whole thing was a fucking mess, but I'm still smart, guys. So I'm gonna call myself a liberalist.
As well, it's like people, they think that it's just economic, but a huge amount of liberal thought is about social freedom as well, and so it's something that we need to be able to say. Like, if someone says, "Oh, well, okay, I want equal amounts of women on the board here," then a person can deflect that by saying, "Well, I can't agree to that because I'm a liberalist."
I guess the question I would have is that, and I think a couple of people asked this in Super Chat, well, someone, at least one person has. How would you say being a liberalist is distinct from the baggage that the term liberal has, especially in the US? How are you going to try and avoid that label associated
It's
with
just going to be a conversation we're going to have with Americans. But I'm sorry, I'm not letting the small subset of the American left that is absolutely cancerous to just. I mean, I'm not going to redefine the name of what I believe just because they're progressives and have stolen the name. This is just, they can say I'm a socialist, I'm a progressive, and I say okay, I'm a liberalist.
Well, it is going to be a bit of a hurdle to get over.
Okay, well,
How
I
would
accept it.
you say? What would you say the difference is between being a liberalist and just being a liberal then? Or would you say?
Oh, the easiest way to say it to an American is you can just say I'm not a progressive. That would be, I think, the quickest distinction in their mind. To say, oh, you're a liberal, it's like, yeah, I'm not a progressive though.
But you
What would
are.
you say the biggest distinction is between, if anything, between being just a liberal, if you say you're a liberal, or being a liberalist?
Well, it depends on the person you're talking to and what they perceive a liberal to be.
So
The basic
you're basically making a new definition because the old one has been co-opted. Like theoretically, liberal and liberalist should be the same thing, but liberal has been co-opted by the progressives.
Yes.
So
liberal has been co-opted by the left specifically. It's not just progressives that use the term.
So I don't even know how to make fun of this. I can't, like, I don't even, what the fuck are they talking
In
about?
the United States.
Yeah.
the question that I got was, why didn't you choose to fight to regain the word liberal rather than?
Well, there's a few reasons, and not because it's been stolen by the progressives, but it's because it's not a statement of intent. That's why. Because a socialist is someone who wants. So the term is.
Okay, I'm going to give you a very brief description of what Sargon's too retarded to understand. So, in Anglo countries, well, not even Anglo countries, in Britain, America, and Canada, the term liberal refers to somebody who's left-wing. Radruss, yes. Actually, Radruss, what's the best way to reach you? Because I want to do a stream with you tomorrow. I was going to this week. I've just been really busy with other work-related stuff. So, I'll tell you what. How about I send you a message on Facebook or something? Or anyways, just message me after this. We'll work something out. I'm going off on a tangent. So, okay. So as I was saying, so liberalism in Canada, America, and Britain means the same thing as progressivism or just generic leftism. Leftism that's a little more free market than social democracy would be. Everywhere else in the world, liberal means center-right. So if you go and you look at, say, Germany, and you have the Free Democrats or whatever, they would put liberalism as one of their ideologies. Or it's just in like Japan, the Liberal Democrats are the Conservative Party. In Australia, the Conservative Party is the Liberal Party. It's common in most of the rest of the world to consider liberalism to be a center-right position.
Really just means.
So it's something kind of unique to this kind of area, particularly with a American Canadian audience, because everywhere else in the world, people know what you mean when you say liberal, pretty much.
Supremacists, sort of like an advocate for an ideology to be above all other ideologies. That's what they're arguing for. And if that's the case, okay, well, I am a liberalist then. I want that to come first, before socialism, before feminism, before Islamism, before communism, for any of them. And that's a word we were missing. So, I mean, if someone's got a better one, I'm happy to use it. But it just fits in with the logical structure of the words.
It's very conventional with the naming.
Yeah.
Another question that I've seen asked a lot is why not just be a libertarian and argue from that point of view?
Because libertarians don't understand their own ideology.
Can you expand on that, or?
Yeah, there's a reason there's a massive ANCAP infestation in the libertarian movement. They have gone out of their way to so completely discredit the idea of a government that none of them can argue in favour of. And unfortunately, we need governments.
So you're a dirty statist, is what
I
they
am,
say.
absolutely.
And a collectivist.
The idea of getting rid of the government is terrifying to me. And should be
Do you
terrifying
think-
for anyone who pisses me off, you know?
Do you think a democratic socialist can still be a liberalist?
No, because he's a socialist.
Yeah, democratic socialist, I think, would be, and I might be mistaken, but wouldn't be like a state like Norway or Finland.
No, that'd be a social democracy.
Yeah.
Yes, that is compatible with being a liberalist.
No, it isn't. Whoa. It's not at all. I don't... What? So, how the fuck is social democracy compatible with being a liberal? I don't fuck... Let's see him try to explain this.
Another question I've seen asked a lot is how are you going to get around kind of the other connotations that the term has? Like, I don't know, a lot of people are not happy with the term liberalist, and they've kind of explained it before, but there is still some confusion about what it is. I know you got the FAQ up there, but will there be a more expanded kind of definition or set of values that are going to be laid out in future, kind of like hard laid out?
Yeah, that's what we're doing here. I mean, is anyone taking any exception to the things that I said a minute ago? Like,
I don't know. No.
I mean, if I said, look, this is how we want society run. These are the basic underlying principles from which we will derive politics. This is another thing that like both Karl Kalinske and David Pakman have criticized me on, and I find it.
Okay, since this ideology is over before it began, this ideology literally fell apart and became meaningless after the first 5 minutes of the stream. I'm going to announce that I am the world's first post-liberalist. That's my idea. I'm a post-liberalist. My ideological basis is reacting to what's come after liberalism. So now that liberalism has collapsed, I am a post-liberalist.
It's infuriating because like they're like, oh, he's not a policy wonk, and it's like, no, I'm not, because policy is, you know, it is derived from your principles, and it's because these guys spend so little time studying your principles that they now find themselves getting ass fucked by the SJWs. They don't know what they stand for, and they need to, and it's because this excessive focus on like the minutiae of government has really taken, like, they're too close to what's happening, and so from the violations of their own principles that they've already agreed to, they've come to a point where they're now at a fork where they know they just can't agree with, say, you know, telling white men to get fucked, but it just seems like there's no alternative. It seems like it's just, and it's not just, it's fucking unjust. And it's because they need to go back to their first principles and say, do I agree with, say, racial discrimination? And the answer is no.
Yes. Oh, okay.
You know, you need to get
I got that one wrong.
You need to think about what you're saying. You need to think about the root of where it comes from. And that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Race?
What about affirmative action?
God?
Yeah, no affirmative action.
Yeah, it's against that's in opposition to meritocracy and individualism.
Oh.
What about
It's affirmative action is still racial discrimination in favor of someone against someone else.
What if it's done for the poor, though? It's like people who are below this threshold get a free scholarship.
Yeah, now that is interesting, isn't it? Because then we're transitioning into issue politics rather than politics, and that's, I think, a much better idea.
No, but that is...
Helping poor people.
One other thing.
No, but that's in direct contradiction. Okay, I'll stop in a minute. I'm just doing something.
And this takes it to a more serious level, and they're concerned that you might lose your momentum because you're going to start becoming a lot more serious.
And these concerns, I think, can be ameliorated if the wall of separation between activism and culture is explicitly laid out.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. I personally have got. I mean, there's a reason that the only image on the homepage of the Society is Liberty Prime at the moment. I don't plan on losing my sense of humor.
Oh, sorry. Is the audio balance having problems?
Than usual, but I still will be happy to employ my sense of humor.
Yeah, I still think that political points can be put across in an entertaining way still.
Yeah, same here. But when we're sort of like defining the principles that we lay out, not.
Okay, so. Okay, let me just. So I'm kind of trying to get into my post-liberalist state of mind. So, oh, turn up the audio on the video. Okay, sorry, I have trouble telling sometimes. Okay, the liberalist audio is low. Okay, sorry. So, here's my issue. Here is kind of my post-liberalist issue. So he's saying that, like, okay, it's okay to treat poor people as a group. That's fine. So group identity is okay so long as it's based on socioeconomic class and not based on ethno-religious cultural groups. I think that's correct. I just like to ask people in the chat, is that a fair... Am I fairly characterizing Sargon's position, what he's stating here, that it's okay to have groups based on socioeconomic categories, but it's not okay to have groups based on religion, culture, etc. Which I don't really see how else that I could interpret what he's saying. And the issue with that is it's so historically bullshit. Because basically what happened with Mussolini is Mussolini was a communist, but then he kind of came to the realization, and this is kind of what fascism grew out of, that the Italian worker and the Italian manager have a lot more in common than do the Chinese worker and the Italian worker. So like, because they have the same religion, they'd speak the same language, they'd know the same people, they would, well, not necessarily the same people, they'd grow up in a similar area, they have the same culture. I mean, you have all these other things they have in common that are more important to identity than socioeconomic class.
I'm gonna take this bit seriously at least. So, yeah.
So this is another concern. Like usually when we do meetups and stuff, there's going to be the occasionally odd person that's going to scream "re" at the car, or like have a Kekistani flag and put on the playground and stuff like that. That while it is fun and I agree, it is humorous. Would it not take away from the seriousness of it?
Sure, but people are...
Dude, you have a fucking furry fag. You have a fucking esoteric Marioism. You have this dude, and you have a crocodile wearing a Burger King hat. I think it's too late to think about
responsible for
seriousness.
their own actions.
Yeah, don't fucking do it. What the fuck do you want from me? I can't make you not do something. Yeah,
I remember the what was it in America? You guys had that movement with the Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street thing, and the reporters would find like a guy that was wearing a pink thong or something like that, and that it is the responsibility of the guy, but it looked bad on the movement as a whole.
Right. There's a subreddit called R Liberalist.
What movement?
People can check it out.
I think the question V's got there is how would you prevent the idea of liberalism or liberalists being co-opted or smeared, like something like an Occupy Wall Street was. If it is more of an idea.
Stop people from smearing it.
Who the fuck would want to cooperate in spirit? Like who would? Like that is their goal here. This movement can't be corrupted because it's so fucking gay that no one would want to corrupt it. Like, because you'd have to no one wants to ironically pretend to be a liberalist. No one. So esoteric Mario, you don't have to worry. This movement is
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. That's just PR. That has nothing to do with anything.
The easiest way to make smears irrelevant is just not be the thing they're calling you.
Which would be anything. So if you have no ideology, then I don't know.
I was thinking if you have, let's say, a event or something, you could ask people to be serious or something. I don't know.
I mean, if I was going to hold a live event, there'd definitely be, I would expect standards of conduct. Like, don't go throwing shit at people and stuff like this. Well, I think that's pretty sensible, and I'm pretty sure most people would agree to that. And do that without me having to mention it. I'll get through the street chats in a minute, guys. Sorry.
It should be like, welcome to Stargun's event. Act like your mother was here.
Don't act like an ANCAP.
Right, okay, so what I'll do is I'll post right, okay, so I'm just going to post the notes that I've got onto Reddit, onto the subreddit, and then you guys can go and comment on there.
All right. Would you say that the primary function of being a liberalist is to push back against identity politics? Is that something?
How can you have the fucking function of something that came up 5 fucking minutes ago? It would be like saying, I'm trying to think of a word. A conservatist. I'm a conservatist. Okay, Argent, so you're a conservatist. What is the conservatist's position on protectionism? Well, you see, the conservatist's position on that is the conservatist's position on that. So, it's that, but I'm worried about conservatism, conservativist principles being co-opted, but I think our idea how we're going to prevent it from being co-opted is we're just not going to tell anybody what the fuck we believe in. So if they don't know what they believe in, they can't go and co-opt them. That's like some Sun Tzu shit. Let me find. I gotta find this. No. Okay, let me just find this. Okay, I'm gonna find this.
It's gonna be codified within the.
Well, that's just. I think that's going to be an inevitable consequence of being a liberalist. I'm just going to post it in the Facebook group for liberalists as well. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a necessary thing for us to do.
I think that it's generally more about the fact that Western liberalism is kind of collapsing in on itself, and more people are, openly giving opinions that fly in the face of hundreds of years of tradition.
The thing I'm seeing generally more in the chat and the discussion in general or on social media is that people don't have any problem with the principles. I think they want the principles to be kind of organized and shown properly. That the biggest problem people seem to be having is a semantic one, and a naming one as well, in that they're nervous about putting a name to things still.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I can't think of a better term than liberalist.
Yeah. I mean, everyone who's nervous, give me a better name.
Yeah, let us know. I mean,
Everybody don't give me a better name. Like, I'm in this chat now. We have Furfag talking, and Furfag, he can't come up with a better name. This guy's trying to come up with like theories about Princess Peach being the Jungian manifestation of the perfect woman, but Mario being the manifestation, the Jungian manifestation of not being adequate for the perfect woman because you're too short. So like that's his theory about liberalist. And then this guy is like, why am I not watching Italia? And he's drawing a picture of a cute boy from Italia and naming him liberalist. Then we got this dude who's fucking, I don't know, he's just eating some chicken with some I don't even know. Okay, I don't
That's what this kind of thing is for. And there's like, I'm an American, and liberal does have baggage to it. But I think that this whole time we've been going by the names other people give us.
Like, people call me a furfag. The truth is, I'm furry sexual.
Have been the ones who've been.
I'm not just very sexual. I'm very sexual. Furry sexual.
Getting labeled. So you're gonna have to decide on something. It's
What
gonna
about
have to be
classical
something.
liberal?
It's not an
I'm nervous about being incorporated by progressives.
Oh, I'm not nervous about that at all.
I'm afraid that they're going to take the term liberalist and sort of hijack it, and then
I
it's gonna
highly
become
doubt it.
poison.
Yeah, they'll be calling us alt-right by the end of the day, I promise
Yeah.
you.
Oh, by the end of the day.
What about classical liberal?
What's an advocate for classical liberalism called, V?
Classical liberal activist.
No.
That would be a classical liberalist, wouldn't it? So
You know what?
she's a liberalist, mate.
Do you
But
know
what
what?
if the classical
thing,
liberal
though,
has to go up?
at the morning Kumai, they were suggesting that Sargonite was a better word, and I'm like, okay,
don't-
that doesn't cringe.
Yes, and it's because they're the anti-Sargonites, and that's all they have to them. That's all they have.
We're against something. We're not for anything.
Yeah,
We're just
I mean
against
that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join into this is that for years and years now, like people have been talking about the things that people have been talking about on their channels, and yet it's just been spinning wheels. There's been
Guys, I gotta admit, you may have heard me slamming Sargon. I may have been saying that this is the gayest term ever, and this is a really, really bad idea. Okay, you may have gotten all that, but here's what I have to say. I'm really just really jealous, and I'm just, because here's the thing. Back when I started this channel, there was a dream in my mind. A dream that one day, when I reached exactly, let me see here, what was the sub number? When I reached exactly 4,246 followers, so one more follower than I have now, I would announce my ideology to the world. And this ideology would be the ideology that would bind all other... it was like the one ring of ideologies. I put on this ring, and the rings, like the fascist ring, the communist ring, the socialist ring, I'd be able to control them. And I was going to launch this ideology. I just needed one more subscriber. But what happened is I mentioned this to Sargon, and he's like, "Can I just saw the one ring that you're wearing, and can I just try it on?" So he puts it on, and he has over that number of subs. So when he puts it on, I'm like, "No, you stole it from me." And he's like, "No, Asiliador, you were foolish enough to give it over to me." So he put it on, and that ideology that I've been trying to do for years was liberalist. That was what this whole alt-right thing. This is a troll. That was a troll. I was a liberalist all along. And this fucking asshole stole my ideology. He stole it. He stole the liberalism. I mean, the liberalist from me. He stole one ring. He's the Smeagol to my Sauron. And then he said, I'm casting you out of Valhalla because you don't know the riddle of steel. Okay, that I didn't come up with that last part.
Been no traction. Nothing has really changed. The rot that is in the Western world continues to spread and get worse. So, and the thing is people like like Jim in the stream that Sargon and I did on my channel, that I said to him, because he named dropped conservatives. He didn't go as far as to say, but people have said, well, why don't you just look to conservatives specifically for some kind of answer? And it's like, okay, what the fuck are they doing? I'm sorry, I don't mean to split any audience or whatever, but I'm saying is that, it's not good enough to just call yourself a conservative when the conservatives don't appear to be in any way focused on actually addressing these fundamental issues.
What? The people who are the most ideologically similar to us suck ass? No, you know what? I think the issue here isn't that our ideology failed. It isn't that what we did is we took an ideology that only sort of kind of worked for upper middle class white males, and we said, okay, let's apply this ideology to other people it's incompatible with. And then that turned into a fucking shit show. So we're gonna back away from that, but that's because they're not actual liberalists. If those people who support all the same things that we do and did all the stuff we would want to do, and it turned into a clusterfuck, if they had just called themselves liberalists, none of this would have happened. Like when Bush came to power and he said, look guys, I'm not a conservative, I'm a liberalist. And we're going to invade Iraq in the defense of liberalistism. And he would have invaded, and they would have brought individual freedom to Iraq, and it would be democracy.
Especially establishment conservatives too.
It's because, honestly, I think it's because the term conservative isn't an attack, it's a defense. That's the thing. It's not an attack. It needs to be an attack. You're asserting, no, I want it this way. And if it's not this way, then it has to change. That's why we need an ist. I know it sounds silly, but I really think it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said you should call it the way.
The way. Then it'll be a popular meme for another 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
I like it, but it's not gonna last.
It seems to be getting old already.
Hey, if people keep getting offended by it, it will last. Okay, that's how memes.
Yeah, but imagine you have a progressivist and they go like, yeah, we need 50% women, and you're like, that is not the way.
We can say that.
Though. That is not the way of the world. That's not the way.
And it literally isn't. So
we will.
Then you have Richard Spencer. Yeah, let's burn down the Constitution. No, brother, that's not the way.
You just have to be meme aware.
Shall we move to principles?
This feels like fucking like my parents talking about memes. Hey guys, I got some dank memes. About liberalists. Hey guys, I made this t-shirt that says Pepe on it, because that's what the kids like these days, Pepe. And it has liberalist under it. I'm cool.
Yeah. Yes, right. So, okay. I mean, is there anything we actually disagreed on here? So, personal ownership. This is where this all stems from, as I believe. What do you guys think?
Have they actually
ties in with
posited anything?
With, private property.
Yeah. Yeah. So you own yourself and any property that you legally acquire,
Okay.
because you acquire it using your own two hands. You worked for it. You picked it up. You made it. You earned it. So it's yours, and no one's got a right to take it away from you.
And that splits us up.
What about taxation?
Off the bat.
Oh my God, taxation is not theft. Do not believe the ANCAP propaganda. It is not fucking theft.
Okay, what I'm saying is, when we conceive of private property, there has to be some.
Whoa. If taxation is not theft, is any amount of taxation not theft? I mean, that's kind of the thing you have to keep in mind. I mean, is there a point in which it becomes theft? But Sargon doesn't want to think about
Speculation, perhaps, that taxation, whatever is taxed is effectively public property.
Yes.
So that.
Yeah, and you are absolutely right. Yeah. Sorry, I know I sounded dismissive there. I guess a lot of people Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Okay, another. Would you argue that a liberalist would want to move towards the minimization of the state wherever possible?
In principle, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, just you would want that just so you have more money.
Personally, I would say yes.
I'm a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, it's not necessarily it's not like necessarily something, but it's.
Okay, so okay, so what he's saying here is, see, guys, the reason we need individuality is you have to pay taxes, because the more taxes that you pay, the more individual you are. So what we have to do is we have to raise taxes really high. We have to have a big government, and only then will the big government allow you to be an individual. Only then will it allow you to be a liberalist.
Definitely a preference I would have.
I know it's a bit of a meme, but there's been a lot of gap within politics for an ideology or a viewpoint that's both socially and economically liberal and
No, there
hands-off
isn't.
and very for the rights of the individual.
No,
and it's
that's
been very difficult for
extremely
people to
common.
vote for any kind of
No,
or
there's
even
lots
just vote
of
for any
that.
kind of ideology that speaks to that. Is that
No, there is an ideology that's free market and socially liberal. It's called conservatism. When was the last time a supposedly right-wing conservative party actually won on an issue in the West? Never.
kind of what you're attempting to do here with
Yeah,
kind of rebooting liberalism, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, like, people's understanding of it and the principles involved seems really limited. Even though in Britain, at least, most people would agree
The people's understanding of the liberalist idea.
with all of this.
I'm reminded of what I know Miles is a popular figure at the moment, but he said just because I like boys doesn't mean I want to have high taxes. And a lot of these issues tend to get bundled together. It almost feels like you can either get taxed to death but have a kind of social liberation and have sexual liberation and gay marriage and all that, or you can get an economically responsible government but one that will clamp down on kind of freedom of association or maybe even freedom of religion. It feels that people have been forced to choose before now, I guess.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I oppose the Conservatives. On their economic policies, I don't disagree with them much, but like
When it comes to principles, would it be easier to sum them up as human rights?
I don't like the language of human rights.
yeah,
What about the American version of God-given rights, like inalienable rights?
I really don't like that.
Okay, is
wrong
there a
with
human
the
right you
rights
disagree
of-
with in particular?
I mean, in terms of human rights, I agree, but framing it in terms of, you have this right because you're born, it's not really clear where they come from, how...
Yeah, mine's
I
just
would
where are
say-
you born? Where are you born? Because not everyone has the exact same rights.
No, but like you look at the UN and the human rights, you copy paste them. That's my idea, because all of them seem to be really good because the countries that apply them are livable countries and countries where people want to go to, and countries that don't have them are countries where people run away from.
The problem is with the UN, especially with human rights, is a lot of it sometimes used as a cudgel for policy.
Okay, but this is the issue with classical liberalism, particularly atheistic classical liberalism. Because kind of what was inherent with most classical liberals, most of whom were deists, is the idea is that human rights and political rights are a natural part of nature. Just as gravity is a natural law, so is your right to a fair trial. So is the right to not be executed when you haven't committed a crime. So they were arguing that these things come from God. So, and that's kind of a core of the smarter kind of American people, is the idea is the Constitution isn't what gives you rights. It legally acknowledges pre-existing rights that have been directly given to humans by God. And the issue is, if we aren't going to say that these rights are grounded in something metaphysical, something eternal and unchanging, be it created by God, be it some kind of Platonic idea, then it's just positivism. And positivism is basically the idea that reality is whatever humans make it to be. So you're seeing them struggle here.
Like,
Yeah, they've been co-opted, I agree. But the spirit of them, the initial ones that were written down,
like the things that the UN has been arguing for stupid things like, tampons are a human right.
like ignore that, okay? I'm talking
No,
about
but there are some serious issues there
okay,
because
right of freedom of speech, right to own property, right for freedom of travel, to travel away from your country, not to another country.
Problem is, those are lofty principles rather than kind of more
Those
concrete
are the ones
pins.
that I'm talking about now.
I can here. Let me, if you want to go through the list of human rights from AHR Library, then I could. It's in the Skype. I posted it in the Skype chat, and there's 30 that they've listed there, and Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
It seems to me, though, that a human right is a consequence of a principle rather than a principle itself.
Yeah,
No.
I agree.
It comes from it, yeah. And from the United Nations site.
Okay, I love how they're beating around the bush on this one. They keep saying, "No, it doesn't come from the UN chart. It comes from a source. It comes from something. Is it God that it comes from? No, it's not God. It comes from the human rights mobile. There's like this human rights mobile that drives around the world, and it drops human rights down.
I'll post that.
fucking know.
Then,
Oh, right to equality. I mean, I guess I'll have to.
Yeah, I really don't like this. I don't like the concept of like quote unquote human rights because our rights are determined by our fucking nation status. All right, that's how it's determined.
Yeah,
and different
as far
people.
as-
Okay, so did you hear that? Because I think that's like extremely important what he's just said here. Because he admits basically without God or some metaphysical principle, rights and morality is 100% subjective based on where they come from.
Right to equality. I mean, I guess I'll have to.
Yeah, I really don't like this. I don't like the concept of like quote unquote human rights because our rights are determined by our fucking nation status. All right, that's how it's determined.
Yeah,
And
as
different
far
people
as-
can determine what's a human.
Whoa, okay, so we need to come up with this idea, this liberalist platform based on the UN Declaration of Human Rights, which comes from principles, and these principles are justified by something we can't refer to because it would be God. But in truth, these aren't actually our principles. Our principles are whatever the government
As far as I'm
says.
concerned, human rights are what we give ourselves.
What?
So we determine what we want to be a human right.
Because I mean, because the whole human right thing sounds a lot like what anarchists would say. Because it's like the whole reason that you would even have a constitution is to guarantee your right. That's the point of the state, is to guarantee your rights. Make sure
Perhaps
that's
it would be-
enforced.
Perhaps it would be helpful to talk about this in terms of the social contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, human rights are the rights that we give ourselves. What? So, okay, so I just want to be clear on this. So they're saying, so Sargon just said human rights are the rights we give ourselves. So the entire basis of his argument doesn't make any sense, because he's like saying, oh, the alt-right, they want their collective rights, etc. Like, how does he have any basis to object to alternative systems then? Because group rights are rights we give ourselves, right? Like the right to a racially homogenous society is a right that we give ourselves, right? So I'm trying to follow this. So basically they spent the last half hour trying to come up with rights, and what they were able to determine is ultimately they stand for nothing.
Okay, so in my opinion, a government has a social contract with the people it rules over to rule over them fairly, justly, lawfully, without undue favour or discrimination, for the benefit of the people themselves and not for the benefit of the government.
To answer Pop TV super chat, yes, traps will be allowed in the Liberalist movement.
Okay, but is there anyone in opposition to that? Is there anything
No.
that's not specific enough?
I don't have any problem with what you said. Does it need to, in terms of specificity, that it exists to guarantee individual rights?
Yeah.
That guy T just accused.
But we just what? Okay, so but they're saying the goal of this move is to protect individual rights, but they just said that individual rights are things that we give them.
The social contract of being collectivist. How do you plead?
I don't see how that makes sense.
Collectivist in the sense of guaranteeing individual rights.
To everybody?
A social contract could be collectivist, but the liberal social contract is not collectivist. No.
I think the problem is that a lot of people who are, well, I guess ANCAPs, like he is, seem to think that anyone who is a statist is automatically a collectivist.
Yeah, no.
That's one of the problems.
The thing is, like a socialist social contract would be collectivist.
Yes,
because
because
the primacy of the state above the primacy of the individual.
yes.
This is not a conversation we need to keep having. It's just you guys need to.
Well, it's also people need to understand that I hate to use the word, but it is a spectrum, right? That there are certain principles that.
Okay, that's the first sane thing I've heard in this entire discussion. You're right, V. It is a spectrum. It is on a spectrum. You guys are all on the liberalist spectrum.
Keep having it. It's just you guys need to.
Well, it's also people need to understand that I hate to use the word, but it is a spectrum, right? That
It
there
is a spectrum.
principles
These guys
that
are all on
collective,
the
certain
spectrum.
Principles that are individualist, and at the end of the day, you just draw the line, and you see how much is it that it's individual or collectivist.
Yes.
Like the United States is a government, but it's considered to be the most individualist country in the world. North Korea is another government, and it's considered to be the most collectivist country in the world. So you can have countries that fall in between.
Okay, another question I've been seeing a lot, Simon, is that how are you going to reach people who aren't engaged online with the liberalist thing? How are you going to reach people who haven't heard of you before or don't know about any of the?
You'll find loads of different ways. That's
For example,
well, I don't know. I might take out adverts on TV or something. I don't know. You know, who knows? I don't know.
Share shit on Facebook.
Oh my god. I feel like donating to this dude's Patreon. Could you imagine, like, being at, like, I don't know, a doctor's office or something, and this smug piece of shit comes on, and it's like, this smug piece of shit comes on, and he's like, do you understand that you've been enslaved by collectivist ideas? And, like, can you imagine people watching this ads and being like, what the fuck does, like, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble making this.
What is the liberalist reasons against hate speech in principle terms?
Because speech is not violence.
yeah.
What if you have someone that
freedom of
advocates
expression.
freedom of-
This is going to be something I'm really going to be trying to go hard against the British government for. I absolutely loathe the fact that Dankula's charge is on the grounds of offence. That fucking pisses me off so much, man. I mean, Holly, someone's offended, therefore you have to go to jail? No, fucking no.
What if it's a imam that goes, that is the sentence, we
I
must kill
don't think he should go to jail.
No?
No!
Well, isn't it incitement to violence?
I don't think that is specific incitement to violence. He was a speech at university, so he's discussing the ideology of Islam. And in it, the ideology of Islam, if you had to describe it, I would also be forced to describe it that death is the sentence for gays. That's not me inciting violence. You know,
I think instead of trying to imprison people and make victims and martyrs of them, it's much better to expose and argue against them.
Yeah, but if like
So, if it was like saying that murder is the act of killing somebody, and I want to murder you, then that doesn't count as murder because I didn't say I wanted to kill you.
2 weeks later you have Orlando shooting.
If he's then you're going to have to ban the whole ideology. It's not just this guy that's the problem, then, is it?
How many attacks have we had in this country, V? And it's not ever going to change the First Amendment. Unless the progressives get their way.
What if it's a communist ideology that gets people to do suicide bombings?
What?
Just
These
don't teach
questions are getting off topic.
Yeah. Don't teach them universities.
Curious to see.
Guys, just stop it. Just stop asking these questions and embrace the liberalist shit.
You're going to be
there
arguing
is
for
a
freedom of speech and people not going to jail unless they have done something actionable, like call for treason, like inside, it's plan a bombing or something.
I think the distinction needs to be that words and threats need to be specific and actionable. There's a difference between saying, I don't know, we should gas the Jews to you should gas this particular person right now. It's
Or, whatever. It's and ultimately, if we ever manage to repeal the laws to the point where we are actually having that discussion, then good.
I do have like one more question regarding this subject, and I don't want to sound like an artist, but this is something that people ask. If you have, for instance, Richard Spencer getting banned in Poland, right? Let's say he would get banned from Britain, and he is a person that advocates against freedom of speech. Would you defend his right to speak against freedom of speech?
Yes, I think that anyone who wants to speak against freedom of speech should be free to do so, but they shouldn't have the heckler's veto when someone wants to defend freedom of speech. That's the only way these people have been advancing their ideas.
I think for many people as well, the whole Dankula thing was a bit of a wake-up call that it has got to the point where you can really be hauled in front of the court for basically people getting offended, and it's their responsibility if they're offended. And I think it's one of those things that highlights why real-world activism is necessary, that we have got to this point where people are going to start going to jail, or potentially could go to jail for this.
So would it be fair to say that people who don't want freedom of speech, regardless of ideology, they need our morality to defend them when they get the platform?
Yeah, they do. They need to have a universalist interpretation of the idea, otherwise there is none. Otherwise it's okay by their own standards.
I think it's the old quote of, I don't like what you're saying, but I'll fight to the death to defend your right to say it.
Yeah,
and
it's
the
mystification of Voltaire. But yes, I mean, that's
So someone in the chat, Catlin in chat said, "Well, individuals don't get to decide or argue against the rights granted to them."
That's a good question.
That has to be decided. That has to be decided by popular discourse.
Agreed.
I think so too.
Wait, so... Okay, so collectivism is bad. The liberalist order... the liberalist order will not be collectivist. So it sounds like, well, what if individuals object to the rights? Well, that's going to have to be decided by the collective. So, okay, so individualism's good, but if an individualism goes against the collective, then the collective's job is to shut them down.
I don't see any other way of squaring that circle, so...
How would you balance the ideas of more individual rights with the idea of individual responsibility? Because that seems to be something that's more disappeared in modern society.
It's the terms of the social contract. You organize them in such a manner that people are given whatever rights they're needed in order to hold up their end of the contract, and the state holds up its end of the contract by granting those rights, or by not putting maybe in those terms, but not granting the rights, but having a guarantee of it not infringing upon those rights.
Yeah, and other people as well. I mean, the reason the state is responsible for criminal punishment is to make sure that the average person doesn't have to be, for the protection of their rights and all that. So, yeah.
Well, there are exceptions, like you can defend your home, if you're in America.
That's because you personally are under immediate threat. And there's no
no, I think the state gives you permission.
Well, you say that, but again, in my country, you
In
wouldn't.
the UK, no.
Yeah,
No, but you can hire a security guard that can beat the living fuck out of someone that comes into your home. And this
No,
is,
you can't.
No, you can't.
What do you mean, you can't hire a security guard in the United Kingdom? You can't hire a bodyguard?
You can, but there's kind of there's a lot of legal grey areas, especially with self-defense here in the UK.
No, this is the state delegating its monopoly of use of force towards other private enterprises.
I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of people would agree, especially here in the UK, that needs to be rowed back on. A lot of people are very keen on the idea of the right to self-defense, especially in the idea of like a home invasion or something like that. I think people are very surprised when they read the letter of the law and how it's enforced here in the UK about how you really can't defend yourself.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that there have been loads of cases of burglars breaking into people's houses, hurting themselves, and then suing the persons whose house they broke into. I'm not kidding, Google. It's the most disgusting thing you've ever seen in your fucking life. It's like, I'm sorry, no, you don't get
That's not very
fucking sue
liberalist.
someone 'cause you hurt themselves.
It's not liberalist at all.
It's just mad.
So then would it be the right to own your own property and also to defend it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't object to that.
By the way,
So
this is
right,
trending
it's-
on
it's-
YouTube now.
I'm going to the. I'm looking through the.
It's individualism. It's the right of the individual over the collective. It's the right to defend your property. But ANCAPs are crazy when they say taxation is theft. It's okay if the state steals from you, but other people
Chat's
can't.
here, and half the people missing the point. I'm looking at a lot of stuff regarding collectivism. Someone saying, "Oh, this stream got this movement, quote unquote, got real status real fast." Like, are you not paying attention?
Yeah, we believe in the idea of a state. I think you have to be quite a political radical to think that there can't be a state at any level.
Yeah, so that's a pretty radical idea. I mean,
No, it's funny. Like,
The point I think is that the state prioritizes the individual instead of its own interests.
Well, it's a push and pull. I think the state is a necessary evil, is the way I view it. It's something that can trample the rights of the individual when it's left unchecked, but it's something that's necessary for the organization of large groups of people.
It's
you
not-
know
it's
what's
not
also
just that.
interesting? You
So to have a society, we need some kind of we need some sort of identity that's bigger than an individual. Okay, so you got the state, but what drives the state? Why do people agree to the state? Why do people allow the state to push them around? It's almost as if there's something there that they're adhering to, that they're using. As a value
You
set.
can't just go into the wilderness,
Collectivist.
like
No,
live
hang on,
off-
hang on. There's more to it than that. For a start, I mean, you need a state if you want to be a political entity. And if there are other political entities around, you really want to be a political entity. This is why, like, the Native Americans formed like the Iroquois Confederation and stuff like this. They needed some way to, some organized method of fighting back against state actors, encouraging them, and they lost. So you need a fucking state if you operate in a political world, which we all do.
Wait a minute, did he just say state taxes? Did he?
Can't be a state at any level.
Yes, I mean, that's a pretty radical idea. I
You
mean,
know what's
yeah,
funny? Like,
The point I think is that the state priority.
And if there are other political entities around, you really want to be a political entity. This is why, like, the Native Americans formed like the Iroquois Confederation and stuff like this. They needed some way to, some organized method of fighting back against state actors, encouraging them, and they lost.
Oh,
So
state
you
actors.
need a
Okay.
fucking state if you operate in a political world, which we all do.
We're
This is why we're not libertarians. Libertarians
Yeah.
sort your shit out. This is
Yeah,
it's really weird.
the fact is that the reason why I don't know if any of us here would call ourselves a libertarian. I certainly won't. But one of the reasons why I will not ever call myself a libertarian is because of libertarians. Your movement is a joke. ANCAPs have taken it over, and ANCAPs are fanatical utopian retards that will never accomplish anything ever.
Well, a question again, going back to my point, how would we stop the idea of being a liberalist being kind of co-opted like libertarianism has been? I know it's a change of terminologies, but it is open to the same.
By applying the principles as purely as possible. That's why. That's how.
What principle? Have we established, like, any principles here? They're like, okay, well, the individual's good, but they have to do whatever the group says they have to do. The size of the state and the power of the government isn't related to this ideology at all. We don't like human rights because human rights imply that there's someone who grants human rights, and we don't want religion. So, I don't really know.
So you think the solution to that is a set out quite solid principles?
Yeah.
should we answer some super chats?
Yeah.
Well-
I'm happy to do something.
yeah, you go ahead. I'll keep it
You're
positive.
fine.
Chat.
Yeah, okay. So, that guy T says treason. How do you find individualist treason? Individualist treason against individualism, Sargon. T, you can't be treasonous to an idea. You can be treasonous to a state. And then he says, how is the social contract not implicitly collectivist? Because collectivist doesn't mean the group. It means putting the importance of the group above the importance of the individual.
Okay, collectivist doesn't mean the group. It means putting the importance of the individual above the importance of the group. So it's okay to have as much government power as possible, so long as the government power is ostensibly in the need for protecting individual. Well, I don't know.
And people mentality.
It seems to me that the people who scream collectivism would be opposed to any more than one person being in a room ever. Like, you see, there are two people fucking, and then these anti-collectivists break in and start shouting, status!
People need to understand collectivism is Google, the corporation. Like Google Corporation was collectivist. It cared about what individuals do in their own free time, who they vote, how they raise their kids. Okay, that is not a healthy corporation. It's the philosophy of the ant people who are drones, and they just need to do what they're told. They have no input, no self-thinking, no nothing, right? Like, every single aspect of your life needs to be controlled. That is what people say when they mean collectivist.
So think of it this way: if you have two libertarians, libertarians can be in a party together. That doesn't make them collectivists, nor does it make them stop being libertarians. And individualists can be in a group working together. That doesn't make them collectivists, and it doesn't stop
Yes,
them
it
from being
does.
individualists.
Yeah,
No,
an
it
individual
does.
in Soviet Russia is a collectivist.
So,
But an individual can
He
be a
believes in
collectivist.
collectivism. He is part of the ideology. An Islamist also is a collectivist.
Just because you support the idea of groups existing and you support the idea that government exists, it doesn't make you a statist, and it doesn't make you a collectivist.
What? Okay, so it's okay to support the idea of groups existing, and it's okay to accept states existing, and it doesn't make you a collectivist. But people who believe race exists are collectivists. So, like, I don't get. So, like, they start off with saying it has to only be about the individual, but now it's not about an individual. It's about control.
The question is, like, how do you want the group? Do you want the group to be where people can express their ideas and people can, when they get outside of the group, can do whatever they want, and that's an individualist approach? or do you want the group to be completely controlled, like every aspect of every person be dominated, and they have absolutely no free input, and they need to do what everyone tells them? That is the collectivist approach of the group.
A very on-topic question here from Lincoln Ward.
That sounds like a difference without a distinction, Mr. Furfag.
Would you support an individual right to bear arms?
I'm not running a political party.
Just in principle.
From the set of principles that we're going to lay out, that the right to bear arms is something that the individual actually has, then you can support that and still be a liberalist.
Yes, arms are a method to protect your private property beginning at your own body.
Just to be clear, I'm not against gun ownership. I personally don't like it, but I'm not in principle against people.
Of course you don't like gun ownership.
People owning guns, and in fact, if your government becomes tyrannical, they may well become necessary. So, yeah, I'm not
British
against it.
people used to have access to guns.
We still have access to guns.
No, you don't.
There's a
But
gun shop
apparently-
near my house, man.
Yes,
No,
apparently,
no,
apparently
you
if
don't.
the robber injures himself, he can sue you. So
Yeah, I know,
that
right?
happens.
Meanwhile, here in America, you step through the threshold and you're dead.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's some people that kill you outside the threshold, and then they will drag you in.
Anyway, so going through some more of these.
Yeah.
Right, apparently we're waffling too much on important points. Sorry, Radio Brain. To Louis regarding conservatives, you want to know what they're doing? They're holding on by the skin of their teeth. It's a dogfight just to hold ground. That's why I pushed for this at MythCon. We can't do this alone. I agree.
He's right. He's right. Conservatism is going to have a really rough 2018 if they don't get their shit together.
Oh, they're in America. They're not doing so hot right now. A lot of people retiring from politics.
Oh yeah, I mean
They
they
did not
have
have
got to, get their shit together.
Tucker
because
Carlson's
it's gonna
woke
be rough.
though. Tucker Carlson's on the fucking ball. Not on everything,
So the liberalists are complaining about people getting their shit together.
but on some things, man. Tucker Carlson's where it's at.
He's one of
Can't
the
talk the talk.
Okay, next point. If this is individualist, how about let's focus on freedoms and more focus on responsibility for individual actions, preferably things that you can have persons enforce. I think that you should bear the consequences of your choices. So if you choose to be a single mother, well,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's just the right to self-determination. Boom, bam, done. Good side and bad side. Boom.
I'm not against like a government program to stop people from starving, but I'm in.
Okay, so you have a right to self-determination. Unless your right to self-determination includes wanting to make an ethno-state. So, so you have this right to self-determination, but if you want to, if a bunch of people want to, as like a free association, go and create an ethno-state and not let people in who aren't from the ethno-state, that's bad. They can't do that. But he believes that, and this is kind of my issue with these people, ultimately they have to reject a commitment to democracy in order to maintain their democracy, because people often vote against democracy. I don't think people really want democracy as it's practiced in the current, as we understand it. So yeah, hopefully I think people
No way
understand.
obligated to help a single mother get a fucking iPhone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just no, fuck off. I'm so sick of it.
I think also, sorry, in terms of the conservative thing, a lot of people are very weary of established political movements and established political ideologies. But that's the thing that I hear from everyone, that especially in the US, there's no third party there. Everyone's still stuck on binary politics, and here in the UK to an extent.
It's not that there's no third party. I actually, on the Kumite, I tried to find an example of a leftist party that's, a good example to give. I couldn't find any.
Yeah, they've all been taken over by socialists.
But the problem is that nobody really sees within politics or within the discourse of politics people that really are espousing things that reflect their views and reflect their viewpoints.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people are sick of the bureaucracy aspect of politics and the politics of politics is the way to say it. But it seems like nowadays it's so hard to get an honest politician or someone who sticks to their guns, who doesn't constantly flip-flop on this and that, but who has this set of rules, and you can look at someone and say, I know the way that person will vote because I know the...
Okay, I'd like to just poll the chat. I'd like to use a lifeline and ask the audience, have they established a single principle that they haven't immediately drawn back on? Because we had it's about the individual, but it's not about the individual. We're against collective identity, but we're not against groups existing. We support democracy, except when people vote in the way that we don't want. The social contract can be between a group and another group, despite, like, they haven't. They haven't really been able to define anything. Okay, because there's like a couple different ways you can go about this. You can do what they did in America, where they said, okay, these are the principles laid out by God, and these are objective and unchanging, and we're gonna adhere to these with a religious reverence, and we're gonna base our society around this. And that was their starting point, and everything flowed from that. So that makes sense to me. That is coherent. You can also take the approach that freedom, individual freedom, is generally speaking a good thing, and you try to bring it about in a pragmatic way. So you have a number of policies that can be changed on the fly to kind of bring it about. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to rationally construct a political ideology without metaphysics. I don't know if that makes sense. Like there's different kinds of political ideologies. There's rationally constructed ones that come from first. Okay, so there's empiricism and rationalism. Rationalism is where you start with a grand principle and then drill it down. So rationally constructing a political ideology is taking an ideal and then trying to drill it down to something practical. And then there's the opposite would be empiricism, where you have experiences and you try to universalize the experiences. So what they're attempting to do here is they're trying to rationally construct a political ideology. They're trying to take first principles and kind of take them to the logical conclusion. The issue is rational construction of political ideology requires some sort of God figure. Now, in Marxism, this is kind of acknowledged, and so they'll refer to history or the dialectic or something as a stand-in for God. Or they'll claim that it's provable by empirical science. So that's why it's called scientific materialism. So these guys are unwilling to acknowledge God, the supernatural, or attempt to harness science for their opinions. So they're left without being able to form a foundation that they can build on top of.
Principles that they make obvious in public, and it's so rare to find people like that.
Here's a very interesting super chat. Liberalist.
Louis, basically, I think the dream of this would be to get all this hammered out and then get Tulsi Gabbard to tell people
to sign on. To sign on, yeah. Well, the thing is, somebody brought it up regarding politicians. I think it was you, Rags. The thing is that even with the whole liberalist thing, let's say it goes very well and people sign on to it, you can't ultimately control what people do after they sign on. The big thing is, in my opinion, that, and this is what you don't see with Republican movements, conservative movements, even leftist movements, is that when they break the principles, that you would, they just allow it to happen and they say nothing. But I would say that one of the fundamental things about, especially in terms of, like, you know, the abstract of someone getting into politics, is once you sign on, and it's like there's a right-wing guy that does this for taxes, that you sign on to, it's called something, I don't remember, but you sign on to something where you agree to these principles, you agree to these actions, and if you violate it, then you're out. But that's
we need to be able to disavow people who violate the core principles.
Only.
Okay, guys, so this is why I broke with the liberalists. Okay, it's partially because Sargon stole my idea to create liberalism. The liberalistism. You know, like I said, I created the one political ideology to rule them all. I had the ring, and Sargon double-crossed me and tried to throw me into Mount Doom. So what they're saying now is we need this, like, cabal, and this cabal of people will monitor the people who claim to be part of the movement, and they will kick out and actively disavow and try to fuck over anybody who violates the principles of their movement that they haven't established yet. I mean, they haven't. They haven't established anything. So they're just basically, this is just basically oligarchy, but like shitty version of oligarchy. So, okay, liberalistism plus. So I'm going to be a liberalistism plus is going to be my new ideology. So let me just try to sorry, get back here for a minute. Okay, so you have the liberalists, you have liberalism, yeah, it's just, yeah, but they have this, they're talking about this cabal, like this fucking secret police force who's gonna monitor everybody who calls themselves a liberalist and like punish them accordingly, and they don't have any rules. Like, what kind of governments and what kind of parties don't have established or consistent rules, have secret police forces that go and punish people or ostracize them for committing ideological crimes against the collective? I don't know.
Basically, that is not like 100,000 people.
Yeah, only, yeah. I mean, but we have to also at the same time. I mean, you see leftist groups, progressive groups, eating themselves from the inside out over purity testing, and I mean, they go at each other's throats over the tiniest of things. And I think it's important that we make sure the method that we avoid that exact same trap that they fall into.
That's pretty easy because they don't actually have any principles.
Well, so, exactly. It's principle based. It's not opinion or issue.
They don't actually have any principles, not like liberalism.
Based.
Right. Yeah.
Here's an interesting issue that I'm trying to get from. Liberalist actually is a Swedish term that means a person who practices, advocates, or sympathizes with liberalism. So for me, as a Swedish, I will gladly call myself a liberalist.
We got one.
we got the Romanian vote. Sweden needs it.
People have joined the Facebook groups and stuff like that.
If liberalist doesn't work out, I vote for Magogo Knight. I volunteer to be your future Dark Overlord.
And let's go back to some more of these principal things. I mean, like, personal freedom is naturally something we're in favour of. I mean, and defining this to include freedom of speech, thought association, artistic freedom, and economic freedom.
How?
I mean, these are things that are going to have to be defined.
Freedom of movement.
Freedom of movement. Well, that's freedom of association.
No, the idea to leave your country. No locking down the doctors.
You don't think that would come into that?
Yeah, no Berlin Walls.
No Berlin Walls.
Oh yeah, but I mean, if you don't think, I'm happy to put that in.
I think people might try to associate that with open borders, though. So
yeah, that's
we have the right to other people's
freedom to start your own
nation
business.
State. The concept of the nation state we believe in.
Yeah.
Freedom to start your own business. Freedom to choose your job.
Would that not just come under economic freedom?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. A quick kind of question from me. What would be like the number one thing from the current state of, especially the UK? Like, if there's one right you could get back from the state that you think we don't currently have, what would that be?
Speech.
Yeah.
It all starts there.
At least. Speech in your country is an issue.
What about getting your gun, Sargon, and then you can get your speech?
Oh, jeez.
I really don't want it to come to that.
The Muslims will win.
No.
Let me see. Some of these questions I'm looking at are well, here, Fox from the West. Sargon seems to think he can actually change this stuff overnight. He's trying to grab all the power too early to the point that he's willing to ostracize political dissidents.
That is the most nonsensical statement I've heard all this.
I'm sorry, what stream are you listening to?
Yeah, like...
Okay, let's go back. Someone made a decent point.
Kind of question from me. What would be like the number one thing from the current state of, especially the UK? Like, if there's one right you could get back from the state that you think we don't currently have, what would that be?
Speech.
Yeah.
It all starts there.
At least. Speech in your country is an issue.
What about getting your gun, Sargon, and then you can get your speech?
Oh, jeez.
I really don't want it to come to that.
The Muslims will win.
No.
Let me see. Some of these questions I'm looking at are well, here.
Okay, are you guys ready for the most logical thing to be said in this conversation?
Fox from the West. Sargon seems to think he can actually change this stuff overnight. He's trying to grab all the power too early to the point that he's willing to ostracize political dissidents.
That is the most nonsensical statement I've...
No, but he just said that. I mean, that's literally what he just said.
I'm sorry, what stream are you listening to?
Yeah, like, what farce are you huffing? I mean, seriously.
I would love to have you expand on that, because that makes no sense. I don't know from what universe you pulled that
I
from.
guess we need to just go back to doing nothing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously this isn't expected to do things overnight.
Do
If it
nothing.
did, that would be great.
discipline.
But,
How?
Jesus, the super chats are piling up. You will take like.
okay,
It
super
really
chats,
is.
focus.
All those fucking cucks giving him money.
Focus on super chats.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to answer some of these, or should
Yeah,
we-
yeah, go on.
Yeah, I can go back to questions later.
What were the things you wrote? Freedom to start the planned businesses, obviously.
Freedom of enterprise.
Yeah, freedom of enterprise. That's good.
To choose your job. To negotiate your wage.
Trainwreck Titty Blister, which is a great name, says, Sargon, do you support forced redistribution of wealth? That's not very individualist of you, sir.
Oh no, taxes!
I'm not even getting into ANCAP arguments about it. Taxes aren't theft. The state needs to exist. We need it to exist. So.
I love how this.
So redistribution of wealth is okay. Doesn't violate your liberalistism if... Okay, the state needs to exist, which means they have an unlimited right to take your money and redistribute it to other people. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can't, well, I have to go to bed because it's like 1:30 and I'm exhausted from a long week. I just wanted to do a stream on this because this was hilarious and I felt I had to address it just for a little bit of fun. So, yeah, I think we've all learned a lot about liberalistism. I think we've all learned a lot about Sargon's political philosophy, whatever the fuck it is. And yeah, I just like to say goodnight to everybody. More videos to come. Have a